Coming up, RFK Jr. faces hostile senators at his Senate confirmation hearing. Things did not turn out as planned for those senators. First up, we have Senator Wyden. Now, for each of the senators that we're going to go through, I will state how much they have received from Big Pharma. My reference for how much they have taken is in the description below. In the case of Senator Wyden, he has taken $1,207,873 from Big Pharma. In all cases, it is worth keeping this in mind when you see the line of questioning they take.
So, are you lying to Congress today when you say you are pro-vaccine? Or did you lie on all those podcasts? We have all of this on tape, by the way.
Yeah, Senator, as you know, because it's been repeatedly debunked, that statement that I made on the Lex Free podcast was a fragment of the statement. He asked me, and anybody who actually goes and looks at that podcast and will see this. He asked me, are there vaccines that are safe and effective? And I said to him, some of the live virus vaccines are. And I said, there are no vaccines that are safe and effective, and I was going to continue for every person. Every medicine has people who are sensitive to them, including vaccines.
Right, so
Wyden is very aggressive here, and keep in mind the amount of money that he has received from Big Pharma. The simple fact is, no vaccine is 100% safe, but there are considerable variations in how safe they are and how effective they are. This is not a binary proposition, and the marginal benefit has to be calculated in each sense. But these senators seem to only want to look at this in extremely simplistic terms.
not only block Americans from having access to the COVID vaccine, but to prevent any future access to the life-saving vaccine. Are you denying that? Your name is on the petition.
We brought that petition after CDC recommended the COVID vaccine without any scientific basis for 6-year-old children. Most experts agree today, even the people who did it back then, that COVID vaccines are inappropriate for 6-year-old children who basically have a zero risk from COVID. That's why I brought that lawsuit.
Once again, yet another simple binary proposition. This has been the problem with COVID vaccines all along. It has been a one-size-fits-all proposition, and this is not warranted. The fact that the median and average age of COVID death is over 80, and in fact is above the average and median life expectancy, tells you all you need to know. My younger stepson got myocarditis as a result of the Pfizer shot. He did not want to take the vaccine. It was mandated. He was extremely healthy, in his 20s, with no potential comorbidities. Yet he had to have it because idiots like Wyden cannot understand nuance and marginal benefit. Next we have Senator Bennett, who does not come across as sharp at all.
I hope that you could answer these questions yes or no. I've tried to ask these in a manner that's faithful to what you actually said, because I didn't want to have a debate about whether you actually said them. So I'm asking you yes or no, Mr. Kennedy. Did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH-funded and NIH published study.
Did you say that it targets black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews?
I quoted a study, Your Honor. I quoted an NIH study that showed that
I'll take that as a yes.
Bennett sure shows his partisan stripes. He has received $730,106 from Big Pharma. He is partisan, but not very bright. Here, Bennett has once again a simplistic, dare I say, simple-minded position that some of those highly nuanced issues can be answered as a simple yes or no answer. This was clearly not something that could be answered simplistically, and when Kennedy tried to add nuance of it being an NIH study and presumably wanting to go into some of the issues, Bennett confirmed the first impression that he is an idiot by just taking it as a simple-minded yes. It must be hard for Kennedy to deal with idiots like this.
I have to move on, I have to move on. Did you say that Lyme disease is highly likely a materially engineered bioweapon? I made sure I put in the highly likely. Did you say Lyme disease is a highly likely militarily engineered bioweapon?
I probably did say that.
Did you say that?
And that's what the developer of Lyme disease.
Once again, Bennett wants a simple yes or no. He certainly doesn't want to delve any further in the discussion. Nuance is clearly too much for him. If you enjoy this content, please like, share and subscribe. You can even buy me a cup of coffee if you like. And then we have Senator Warner.
Will you commit not to fire anyone in the health arena who currently works on protecting Americans from cyber attacks in their healthcare files?
I will commit to not firing anybody who's doing their job.
Based on your opinion, based upon your opinion, or your political agenda, or Mr. Trump's political agenda?
Based upon my opinion.
Here we have Senator Warner, who has received $654,210 from Big Pharma. Warner clearly doesn't like the idea that Kennedy should be able to fire anyone, despite the fact that people that are not doing their jobs well should be able to be removed. The problem with Democrats, though, is that as long as someone is working in one of the departments is a Democrat, it should simply be one big sheltered workshop.
You said you actually like to get rid of 2,200 people from HHS. Which offices are you going to start cutting and riffing these 2,200 workers from?
Senator, there's 200 political appointees that are changed during every administration.
So if you got rid of those 200 political appointees, you're not going to replace them with your political appointees?
Well, President Biden this year changed 3,000 employees at HHS. 3,750 at NIH.
You're 2,200. What departments are you going to pick them from?
Well, the same as President Biden did when he changed 3,000 out.
As I said, Warner has a real problem with potentially sacking employees. As RFK says, Biden fired thousands, presumably mainly Republicans. But now there is a view, because it is a Republican administration, no firing should occur, particularly Democrats.
A lot more on. Will you commit not to fire anyone in the health arena who currently works on protecting Americans from cyber attacks in their healthcare files?
I will commit to not firing anybody who's doing their job.
Warner continues with his stupid line of questioning, and he gets the answer that he deserved. Then we have Senator Cortez Masto.
I guess my question to you is, if it really is fundamental to what you believe, how do you live with that? How do you address those issues moving forward, knowing that it's going to harm Americans? Yeah.
You want me to answer the question?
No, I'm asking you.
Okay. President Trump has asked me to end the chronic disease epidemic and make America healthy again. And
So is that the only reason why you're at HHS? Is that the only reason why then you're at the HHS, to address that one issue?
President Trump has asked me because I'm in a unique position to end that. And that is what I'm doing. And if we don't solve that problem, Senator, all of the other disputes we have about who's paying, and whether it's insurance companies, whether it's providers, whether it's HMOs, whether it's patients or families, all of those are moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. Our ship is sinking.
RFK is entirely correct. Chronic disease is a very real problem. In fact, it is the most critical health issue to address. It is very expensive to address in the way that it is being dealt with now, in terms of treating symptoms as opposed to the causal factors. Trump has appointed Kennedy to deal with this fundamental issue, as opposed to giving people vast amounts of drugs. And oh yes, for info, Cortez Masto has received $537,781 from Big Pharma.
The 60% increase in Medicaid over the past 4 years is the biggest budget line now, and it's growing faster than any other. And no other nation in the world has what we have here. No other nation has a chronic disease. We have the highest chronic disease burden of any country in the world. We had, during COVID, we had 16% of the COVID deaths in a country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. We had a higher death count than any country in the world. And when CDC was asked why, they said it's because Americans are the sickest people on earth.
This is very true. The fact is, chronic disease is a very real problem in the US. You just need to look at the obesity rates in the US to see that. The rates are staggering. Then when you look at the comorbidities being listed as being important in terms of COVID deaths, for example, obesity is right up there in shining lights. Then we come to the hypocrite, Elizabeth Warren.
And that is that Big Pharma has too much power in Washington. You've said that President Trump asked you to, quote, clean up corruption and conflicts. Sounds great. You've said that you will, quote, slam shut the revolving door between government agencies and the companies they regulate. That also sounds great. So here's an easy question. Will you commit that when you leave this job, you will not accept compensation from a drug company, a medical device company, a hospital system, or a health insurer for at least 4 years, including as a lobbyist or a board member?
Can you just repeat the last part of the question? Can I commit
You're
to
not going to take money from drug companies in any way, shape, or form.
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
Oh. Yeah, I'm happy to commit to that.
Okay, good.
Warren critically says that she's in favour of limiting the power of Big Pharma. She wants RFK, though, to commit to not taking money from drug companies in any way, shape or form. What a hypocrite the harridan is. This is a woman who wants one standard for RFK, a standard she clearly doesn't want to commit to herself, as she herself has taken $1,224,145 from Big Pharma. What a piece of work she is.
I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
No,
and I'm not going to agree to that,
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So
here is the person who has taken over $1.2 million from drug companies, wanting RFK not to sue drug companies. Talk about trying to protect your paymasters. This is just blatant corruption.
of HHS, and I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You and I, you have said
You're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Here, she is still pushing for her paymasters for all that she is worth. She is very shrill on this, trying to ensure that her paymasters are very well protected. Ethics committee is not enough for her. She really is a piece of work, but she tries in general to come across as all mealy-mouthed and really everyone's favourite aunt. I've met so many of her type on the left in politics. Oh, so moral and ethical on the surface, but some of the nastiest people imaginable when you scratch just a little bit beneath the surface.
His kids. The bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. I will do that. The only thing I want is good science, and that's it.
How about then say you won't make money off what you do as Secretary of HHS?
Before we go to Senator Tillis, I think it would be important for me to make it very clear that Mr. Kennedy has gone through the same Office of Government Ethics process as every single other nominee in the Finance Committee this year and in previous administrations. In addition to listing his assets, including the items that you've identified, he has signed an ethics letter that has been reviewed by the Office of Government Ethics concerning any possible conflict in light of its functions and the nominee's proposed duties. And we have a letter from the Office of Government Ethics that he hasn't complied completely with all applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest.
The nastiness continues. You have Warren fighting very hard for Big Pharma. There's no doubt about that. However, the chair dresses Warren down, pointing out the hypocrisy in Warren's push. Warren really does not like it. Next, we have Senator Lujan.
Do you support cutting, yes or no? Let me ask you this way, since it's only about President Trump.
I support making it better, Senator.
If President Trump asks you to cut Medicaid, will you do it?
Well, it's not up to me to cut Medicaid. It would be up to Congress. And
you don't
I'm going to work.
Mr. Kennedy, you don't want to answer? I'll move on. Do you know?
Senator Lujan has made $375,652 from Big Pharma. He pushes on the issue of Medicare and potential cuts. Unbelievably, he thinks that Kennedy telling him what he should know, that it is Congress that determines budgets, not the secretaries of departments. And he takes it as Kennedy not answering the question. Where do some of these people come from? Then we have Senator Warren again.
Question is, do you accept even a scintilla, just even a sliver of responsibility for the drop in vaccinations and the subsequent deaths of more than 70 people? Anything you do differently?
No, absolutely not. After there were two incidents in which children died. In 2015 and again in 2015, it was from the measles vaccine. That's what the New Zealand General Hospital found. The government of Samoa banned the measles vaccine after the 2018. I arrived in July of the next year.
Warren is pushing vaccines yet again. She seems to be very worried about a potential loss of business for Big Pharma, despite her protestations to the contrary and pushing for Big Pharma to have less power in the US Congress. This was her coming back later after her dressing down. As Kennedy points out, he arrived in Samoa after the deaths occurred and after decisions on vaccines were made. And then we have the one and only Bernie Sanders.
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? It's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money.
Contributions from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the single,
not a nickel from corporate PACs.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200.
Bernie Sanders earned $1,953,613 from Big Pharma. He sure does not like being called on it. The number RFK quotes is an old number because it comes from an earlier time period. Bernie tries denial, denial, denial. Then he tries to mitigate the damage by saying that the 1.5 million was a small component of 200 million. Nonetheless, he did get a very big contribution from Big Pharma, and here he was caught out blatantly lying. How do you think RFK performed in his Senate confirmation hearings? Please let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.